A single concussion, even a mild one, could triple the long-term risk of suicide later on. Now, this study, it was published in the Canadian Medical Association Journal, and it looked at recreational concussions versus concussions that were sustained during the week. And on average, suicide occurred in the study that they did with these mild concussions. Suicide occurred almost 6 years after the concussion, and these recreational concussions, as they were calling them, or weekend concussions, the later risk of suicide increased by 4 times the norm.
Does that mean like sports and stuff?
That's exactly what that means. These football head injuries that are, sustained, and they were looking at why that was, and they found that it really didn't matter where the impact happened, whether it was a frontal lobe or on the side, that it was the number of times they were being hit. So obviously somebody that's playing football is being hit repeatedly. That's not shocking that that they would have an issue as opposed to somebody who accidentally falls during the week.
American football, boxing, I'm sure too.
Right.
And you see nowadays as we learn more and more about the brain and how injuries really affect the brain in the long term. You see how serious people are taking these things nowadays. This is a huge topic of discussion in American football. Lesser here in America, but soccer too, because I remember back in the day, if someone would get hit in the head, for example, during a soccer game, you fall and you hit your head on the ground, somebody would run on, they'd look at you for a second, and you'd continue playing. But now you're not allowed to continue playing. You have to come off of the field if you hit your head. So we see we're learning a lot more, and people are taking this a lot serious because it is clearly something that will affect you in the long term, and in some cases even suicide.
I mean, that makes total sense, that PTSD, depression, suicide, that these would all be associated with issues or imbalances in the brain. And the fact that somebody can be concussed to the point where, later on it affects them to the point where they commit suicide, that's not shocking to me. This is what one researcher who worked on this is what she had to say about it. It can be difficult to tease out what's related to an injury and what's related to the circumstances surrounding the trauma. There could be PTSD, loss of job, orthopedic injuries that could all influence depression, but I do believe there's probably an organic brain injury. She's saying that injury, it does play a factor. I mean, granted, there are outside other issues. She cites loss of job as one, but outside issues that can contribute to depression. But that impact, we're learning more and more about this, and the fact that they're doing this study, I mean, it's I want to say it's not surprising. It's not surprising.
What do you do? I mean, what do you do about people who have a passion in boxing and who love playing football? What do you just tell them? Do you change the rules? I mean, do you say, like, we have to get better padding in the football helmets, for example, or do you just tell them, play at your own risk?
No,
you're getting millions of dollars.
You just go ahead and take the chance.
Take a chance. I mean, that's not cool.
Neurological effects could therefore be, a given.
It's not worth your life.
It's not worth your life. The study, they had this one helmet where they did sensors in the football helmet, and they were trying to determine the aspect of impact and how it affects these players and whether they should give up the sport or not. And I like that question because a lot of people, after looking at the study, it wasn't conclusive enough to say, look, you're going to have a long-term injury if you've in fact sustained a concussion. So the fact that the studies come out and said it, one caveat to this, Nick, and then I'll wrap it up, inflammation was a major factor in the hit. So for people who'd sustained the concussion, they talked about the inflammation aspect, and something really critical that they pointed out. So if somebody gets a concussion, they want to make sure that they lay down, that they don't ever go back full speed. They give themselves several days, even weeks to rest and recover. They shut the brain off and let them allow themselves to heal. Or these types of injuries, they're serious. They're more serious than we ever thought. They can lead to depression and suicide.